My criticism here will be very harsh. However, and I want to be very clear, I have no issue with Evan. I have no physical, emotional, ideological, metaphysical issue with Evan as a person. But as a critic, I do find him to be not very good. Now, I'm not saying this essay is bad. This essay is actually very excellent in terms of what it wanted to do. And I do think he makes some very powerful points against CinemaSins and CinemaWins.
Let's start off with CinemaSins. The structure of every CinemaSins video starts with a title intro and spoiler warning, followed by a chronological run-through of the film with narration to address sins. These sins are tallied into a number, the film is given a sentence, and the video ends with outtakes. What I want to make clear from the start is that this formatting in and of itself is not inherently flawed. In fact, several content creators who criticize CinemaSins such as The Birdman, JXE, Sean, and Bob Vids use the CinemaSins format as a means to respond to individual CinemaSins videos. It's a great way to make concise points and typically to address certain mistakes that CinemaSins make in their videos.
There's a little dodge at the beginning, him basically helping JXE, and JXE's a piece of scumbag, but we'll put that aside. That's a minor mistake, I think, but we'll deal with that in due time. Let's deal with the heart of the issue, which is the objectivity standard that the EFAP has tried to popularize. And I would think Evan is probably the best case scenario, that he's taking that standard seriously and trying to apply it, but just in doing some narration, he makes so many mistakes and the errors are so massive, you're like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work.
Making Lee's defense a post-hoc rationalization.
Okay, so Yoda blew up the tree with Force lightning, Luke projected himself across the galaxy, and now Luke catches the lightsaber. We know that Act 2 is an important place for the Force, so it stands to reason. Strong Force location, strong Force ghost powers?
Lee posits this explanation in the form of a question. Yet again, this is another post-hoc argument built by past events to form an explanation. In the previous Star Wars films, the audience never saw the Force ghosts interact with environments outside of communicating with others. Since Force ghosts can't die and there would be no risk for a Force ghost in combat, audiences were led to assume that the Force ghost could only communicate with others and not physically interact with them. Yoda using lightning to burn down the tree in The Last Jedi was the first instance where we saw Force ghosts being able to interact with the physical world. The Rise of Skywalker confirmed this beyond a shadow of doubt by having Luke catch Anakin's lightsaber, raising the question of why Force ghosts can't help in battle situations. Any argument that can be made, including Lee's, is post-hoc considering that there is no mechanical reference for how the Force ghosts function. Force ghosts appeared on Hoth as well as Endor in the OT, and there was no implication that they couldn't go where they wished. The sequel trilogy is the first instance where we see Force ghosts interact with the real world, yet they never assist the film's heroes in spite of all evidence telling the audience that it is possible. And noting that they appear on the island in the sequel trilogy does not mean that they can't leave the island, meaning both cases of Force ghosts interacting with the world are significant retcons to the mechanics of Force ghosts in the Star Wars universe.
So I'm not going to get into The Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker, except at a very basic level, so there will not be major spoilers. But let's just key in on what he's trying to say, and what he just said is so incredibly bad and stupid on so many levels. It's insanely incredible what he just said. So the first problem, do the Force ghosts only interact in The Last Jedi physically, or even in Rise of Skywalker? Well, no. In Return of the Jedi, Obi is sitting on a log. So they do and have always been physically interacting with the universe. That's even true in the first film. If you use your voice, clearly you have some kind of physical presence in the universe. I guess with the first film you might say it's mental telepathy, though we don't really know. But definitely after Empire, yes, they have some kind of physical connection to the universe. So I don't know what Star Wars he saw, or even Empire Strikes Back he saw, but he's not recalling events very well. And then we turn to The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker proper. He's getting a lot wrong there too, because following his own logic, these films build upon one another. But do they build upon one another? Because I think we can say Rise of Skywalker is radically retconning many things in The Last Jedi. And if we're going with that interpretation, which I think is correct, well then now those events, including Yoda using lightning, are being cast into doubt. We don't know if it happened anymore, because again, so many things have been retconned. Did what happened in The Last Jedi actually happen? We know what Ryan wanted to happen, but now Rise of Skywalker is putting those things into doubt. So we're stuck with, did that event even happen? We only have Yoda, Ghost, and Luke. So we're like, question mark. So it could be Luke grabbing the lightsaber is the only real physical interaction in the whole trilogy. Don't worry, Rise of Skywalker goes super crazy and does more, but we're going to get into that right now, because he says, well, that raises the questions why they don't intervene in battle. But Obi did intervene in battle. He helped Luke destroy the Death Star. Did you not see the first film? And we'll put aside, the Force ghosts don't need to interact directly to affect a battle. In the first film, he just gives advice to Luke. They destroy the Death Star. that definitely affected the outcome. So you've made what now? 4 major mistakes just on your own analysis. Oh, it gets a lot worse. Apparently, Evan totally forgot. At the end of Rise of Skywalker, the Force Ghosts do intervene. They do help Rey. Now, to be fair, I'm not getting into the texts themselves, but I think a fair interpretation would be the Force Ghosts basically pumped up Rey with a lot of their ghost power, and that's how she was able to take on Sidious, and she even dies, and she has to be resurrected. So the Force Ghosts did intervene. But here's a major problem, I think, with the whole analysis is I'm not posing attacks. I'm just asking questions, because at the end of Rise of Skywalker, we get the voices of the ghosts. So we're left with the question, well, was this the ghosts? Was this the Force? Were these other actors? Remember, Sidious was imitating other voices, or so Rise of Skywalker leads us to believe. We're left with a lot of questions at the end of Rise of Skywalker. I'm not saying these are good questions. I'm not even saying Rise of Skywalker is good. But if we're following the EFAP method, things that happen in the film definitely happen. Well, the ending is very confusing. So you might still be correct. Maybe the Force Ghosts did not intervene. Maybe they were other actors. Maybe other cosmic entities. That's the problem. We'll never know definitively. So we're just stuck with a lot of ambiguities in any text. But if this is the best shot the EFAP has, then it's pretty clear when critics do criticizing, even when they do their best job, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. So the objectivity standard did not help. Using the objectivity standard, this essay is horrible. Evan Monroe is a complete fucking moron. The EFAP are a bunch of clowns. But obviously Evan doesn't think he's a complete clown. So what's going on? Well, we're still left with the objectivity standard does not make sense. When applied at its best, it doesn't work. Maybe it does exist, but at least metaphysically, it will never really work in the real world.